John Wick was born Jardani Jovanovich on September the 12th, 1964, in the Soviet Union. He was orphaned at a young age before being taken in by an old friend of his father who would eventually become his mentor. It is revealed in the John Wick comic book miniseries that he spent a significant portion of his adolescence in El Sazel, Mexico. At one point, he was eventually recruited by the Rosca Roma organized crime group and was trained by its leader, a woman known as the Director. While in New York City, John became associated with many members from the many branches of the Rosca Roma, including Katia, who was his adoptive sister. And it was around this time in New York City that he would adopt the name Jonathan, or John Wick for short. In the comic, also depicted that at one point in his life, he went on a mission to avenge his childhood hometown and 50 civilians who were destroyed and killed by a local gang. He also encountered Charon, an old acquaintance, and saved his life after witnessing some assassins who were holding him at gunpoint opposite to the room he was staying in. This would be the catalyst to their friendship, as Charon told John that he owed him a lifelong debt. Film John Wick, John is shown to have a tattoo across his back reading Fortunatus Fortuna Adiuvad, which translates to Fortune favors the bold, which would imply that he was once in the United States Marine Corps, but this has yet to be confirmed. If he was, it is most likely he was a member of a Special Operations Command component of the branch, given his extensive knowledge of security, surveillance, and being able to strategically plan things very well. Although, this is all just speculation. Following the years leaving the Rosca Roma, John became a professional assassin who earned the nickname Baba Yaga, which in the film translates to boogeyman in Russian. Unparalleled hyper-lethality. At this point, he would join the Continental, a hotel catering exclusively to criminals. His reputation for peerless efficiency and reliability earned him considerable respect and fear within the criminal underworld, as well as his persistence to go after those who earn his anger and make him a legendary figure known to leaders of virtually all criminal organizations as someone to never be crossed. During this time, he would eventually join the Russian criminal organization known as the Tarasov Mob, becoming one of the main executors of its leader, Vigo Tarasov, who had valued and respected John's exceptional abilities, and once saw John kill 3 men in a bar with a single pencil. During this time, Wick developed relationships with other criminals as well, that were also working for the High Table, the highest known power in the international criminal underworld, which is comprised of delegates representing each controlling mafia family. However, John also made a considerable array of enemies, unsurprising given his profession, including Miss Perkins, Cassian, and Sophia Alwazar. During this time, he helped Sophia rescue her daughter from the mob and consequently received a blood oath marker from her, symbolizing her debt to him. Despite his extensive career as a hitman, John would also meet a woman named Helen, with whom he fell deeply in love with and later married. And it's because of his marriage to Helen that he decided to leave the criminal underworld life behind for good. It was at this point that he would approach Vigo Tarasov about walking away. Vigo then made a proposition for John, that he would be allowed to leave the life behind only under one condition, that he would complete an impossible task, to kill every one of Tarasov's rivals in a single night, ensuring his enemies would be completely destroyed before any could mobilize and retaliate. However, this task was not considered possible even for a skilled assassin such as John Wick to do alone. And so, he sought the help of an Italian syndicate leader known as Santino d'Antonio, who provided additional manpower and equipment in exchange for John giving him a marker, a decision that would ultimately come back to haunt both men. Upon completing the task, Wick was released from Vigo's services and allowed to retire to a quiet life as a law-abiding citizen. John and Helen lived peacefully for about 5 years before Helen's death from cancer, shortly before the events of John Wick Part 1. Prior to the events of the first film, the mysterious criminal mastermind known as Hex was rebelling against the High Table and kidnapped Sharon and Winston in an unknown location. At this point, John is called in by the High Table under a contract to rescue both as an act of fealty. He traveled to New York City and Switzerland to take on Hex's enforcers and underbosses, and eventually succeeded in defeating Hex and rescued both Sharon and Winston.